Max won't stop barking at Diplomat's bag. TSA freezes at deadly secret. The steady hum of Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport was shattered by a sound TSA agents had learned to respect: the urgent, insistent barking of Max, the most decorated K9 in Atlanta PD history. Sarah Collins felt the leash go taut as her Belgian Malinois partner lunged toward the sleek black diplomatic bag sliding through the X-ray machine. "Max, heel!" she commanded, but the dog's behavior told her everything she needed to know. This wasn't routine excitement. This was detection mode. The owner of the bag, a silver-haired man in an impeccable suit, stepped forward with practiced indignation. "Control your animal, officer. This is a diplomatic pouch protected by international law." Ambassador Viktor Petrov's accent was thick, but his English precise. He extended a diplomatic passport bearing the seal of Carovia. "I understand, Ambassador, but my partner is indicating something concerning," Sarah said, maintaining professionalism despite the sweat now beading on Petrov's forehead. 6 years working with Max had taught her to read both canine and human body language. The ambassador's pulse visibly throbbed at his temple. TSA Supervisor Ray Dalton appeared, his face already arranged in apologetic lines. "Officer Collins, you know the protocol with diplomatic pouches." "Sir, Max has never given a false positive, not once in 6 years. Sarah held her ground, noting how the ambassador's eyes darted to the nearest exit. "Something's wrong here." "I have a flight to catch," Petrov snapped, reaching for his bag. Max's barking intensified, teeth bared now, a reaction Sarah had only seen twice before, both times leading to major weapons busts. "Step back from the bag, please." Sarah's hand moved instinctively to her holster. The terminal fell silent. Travelers stopped to stare. Security personnel shifted uncomfortably. "This is outrageous." Petrov's voice rose, but Sarah noticed something else, fear flickering behind his diplomatic facade. "I'll have your badge for this, officer." Dalton pulled Sarah aside, voice low and urgent. "Collins, do you know what you're doing? That's the Carovian ambassador. We can't legally touch his diplomatic property without authorization from state." Sarah watched Max, still fixated on the bag, his entire body vibrating with certainty. She'd followed Max's instincts into burning buildings and through gunfire. She wasn't about to ignore them now. "Then get that authorization," she said, eyes locked on Petrov, "because my partner is telling me there's something deadly in that bag, and I'm not letting it leave this airport." Petrov's hand moved to his pocket, retrieving a phone. Sarah intercepted, gently but firmly taking the device. "I'm sorry, Ambassador, but I need to ask you to wait with us until we sort this out." "You have no right," Petrov hissed, a drop of sweat rolling down his temple. "Actually, for suspected hazardous materials, I do." Sarah nodded to the security team. "Secure the area and contact FBI liaison. Ambassador Petrov will be comfortable in the security office while we wait for authorization." As they escorted the fuming diplomat away, Sarah knelt beside Max, whose attention never wavered from the bag. She whispered into his alert ear, "I trust you, partner. Whatever's in there, we'll find it." Across the terminal, Sarah noticed a man in a dark suit watching intently before speaking urgently into his wrist microphone. Not airport security. Something else. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Careful. Not just diplomatic, bigger game." Sarah looked from the message to Max, then to the diplomatic bag, sitting isolated on the conveyor belt. Whatever was happening, it had just escalated beyond a routine security check. She'd staked her career on Max's instincts before. Today, she suspected they might be staking much more. 4 hours of bureaucratic warfare had yielded results. The FBI's counter-terrorism unit had obtained emergency authorization to inspect Ambassador Petrov's diplomatic pouch. Sarah stood in the airport's secure containment room, watching technicians in hazmat suits carefully open the sleek leather bag. Max remained at alert, his eyes never leaving the bag even as officials from 3 agencies argued around them. Officer Collins, you understand, if nothing is found, your career is effectively over. Assistant Director Haynes of Homeland Security didn't phrase it as a question. Sarah didn't flinch. If nothing is found, sir, I'll hand in my badge myself. The hazmat technician's voice crackled through his mask. We've got something. The room fell silent as he carefully extracted a cooling container nested within a lead-lined compartment. Inside, 6 glass vials filled with milky fluid sat in perfect formation. Jesus Christ, someone whispered. Preliminary field test indicates biological agent, the technician announced, voice clinically detached despite the implications. Unknown strain, highly concentrated. Sarah looked at Max, who finally relaxed slightly. Mission accomplished. She scratched behind his ear, murmuring, "Good boy, the best boy." Ambassador Petrov, watching from behind a security partition, lunged against his restraints. "This is a frame-up. These are medical samples for research only. This is an international incident." Sarah stepped closer to the glass, studying the man's face. "Those vials were hidden in a lead-lined secret compartment, Ambassador. Standard protocol for medical samples?" Before Petrov could respond, the door burst open. Sarah's commanding officer, Chief Michael Richards, entered with a storm brewing on his face. "Collins, outside, now!" In the hallway, Richards exploded. "Do you have any idea what you've done? The State Department is going nuclear. The Carovian embassy is threatening to cut diplomatic ties. Sir, with respect, we found bioweapons in a diplomatic pouch. We found unidentified biological samples that the ambassador claims are medical research materials," Richards corrected. "And until proven otherwise, that's the official position." Sarah felt her temper rising. "Max doesn't alert on medical samples. He's trained for biological weapons and explosives. This is above your pay grade now." Richards cut her off. "You and Max are off this case, effective immediately. 2 weeks administrative leave while we sort out this diplomatic nightmare." "Sir." "That's an order, Collins. Go home." Sarah found herself in the parking garage an hour later, tossing her gear into her SUV while Max paced restlessly in his travel kennel. "I know, buddy. I don't like it either." Her phone buzzed with a text from Dalton, the TSA supervisor. "FBI confirmed. Weaponized strain of hemorrhagic fever. You were right. Still getting benched, though. Sorry." Sarah sat in her car, knuckles white on the steering wheel. Max whined softly from the back. "This isn't over," she told him, making a decision. "We're just getting started." Later that night, in her small Atlanta bungalow, Sarah spread crime scene photos across her dining room table. Max refused to settle, pacing between the window and door. "You feel it too, don't you? Something bigger happening." Her laptop chimed with an encrypted message from Alex Mercer, her former partner from narcotics, before she joined the K9 unit, now working intelligence. Petrov visited Dallas, Chicago, and NYC in the last month. Same diplomatic pouch, same security bypass, facial recognition caught Viktor Orlov entering the country 2 weeks ago. Thought you should know. Sarah's blood ran cold. Orlov? The arms dealer who had nearly killed Max 2 years ago with an aerosol toxin during a raid gone wrong. The man who had spent 3 days at Max's veterinary bedside, praying her partner would survive. Max suddenly stood alert, staring at the front door seconds before a shadow passed by the window. Sarah killed the lights, drew her backup weapon and whispered, "Find." As Max moved silently toward the threat, Sarah faced her first impossible choice: follow orders and surrender the case, or follow Max into whatever darkness awaited them outside. She chose Max. She always would. The abandoned warehouse at the edge of Atlanta's industrial district smelled of rust and secrets. Sarah crouched behind a stack of moldering crates. Max pressed against her side, both perfectly still as flashlight beams swept through broken windows. They'd narrowly escaped the men surveilling her house, but Sarah knew they were still hunting. "They found us too quickly," she whispered to Max. "Someone inside the department tipped them off." The betrayal stung worse than the cut on her arm from their hasty escape through her bathroom window. 24 hours on the run had left them both exhausted. but Sarah couldn't risk going to any of her usual contacts. Not until she knew who to trust. Max's ears suddenly pricked forward, head tilting in the way that signaled recognition, not threat. "Collins, you in here? It's Mercer." Sarah remained hidden, gun ready. "Prove it's you. 2 years ago, when Max was poisoned, you made me promise that if he didn't make it, I'd take his collar to your father's grave." Sarah exhaled slowly, holstering her weapon. Alex Mercer stepped into view, his intelligence analyst badge catching the dim light filtering through grimy windows. "You look like hell," he observed, setting down a backpack. "Brought supplies, food, first aid, burner phones, the works." As Sarah patched her arm, Mercer spread documents across a dusty workbench. "The vials they found? Weaponized Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever, modified for aerosol dispersal. One vial could infect thousands in an enclosed space." "Like an airport," Sarah said, "or subway system." "Exactly. And Petrov's diplomatic visits map perfectly to the 4 largest transit hubs in the country." Sarah processed this while feeding Max from the supplies Mercer brought. "Who's backing Orloff? Last I heard, he was in a Korovian prison. Prisoner exchange 3 months ago, off the books." Mercer hesitated. "Sarah, there's something else you should know. The authorization for that exchange came through Director Richards' office." The revelation hit Sarah like physical blow. Michael Richards, her mentor, the man who'd recruited her to K9 Division after her previous partner was killed in the line of duty. The man who'd stood by her bedside in the hospital after the Orloff raid went bad. "That's not possible," she whispered. "I've been tracking suspicious authorizations for months," Mercer continued. "Money transfers, classified intel leaks. All roads lead back to Richards. I think he's been compromised." Sarah's mind flashed back to Max's training days, when Richards had personally selected the Belgian Malinois for the program, despite concerns about his independent streak. "He's not stubborn," Richards had told her. "He just sees things we don't. Trust him when it matters most." "Max never liked the director's new cologne," Sarah said quietly. "Started about 6 months ago. Would always maintain distance during briefings." "Animals sense character shifts before humans do," Mercer noted. "Your partner's been trying to tell you something." Sarah ran her hand along Max's back, feeling the ridge of scar tissue from the surgery after Orloff's attack. The day she realized Max wasn't just department equipment but family. The weeks of rehabilitation, sleeping on the clinic floor beside his kennel, reading case files aloud because the vet said familiar voices sped recovery. "I let him down once," Sarah said, remembering Max's labored breathing as the toxin took effect. "Never again." She stood, decision made. "We need to break into the evidence lockup. If Petrov's vials were part of a larger plan, the biological signature will tell us where to look for the next attack." "That's suicide," Mercer protested. "The department's on lockdown. They're calling you a rogue officer." "Then we don't use the front door." Sarah checked her watch. "Shift change is in 40 minutes. The ventilation system connects the roof to the evidence processing lab. Max and I mapped it during counter-terrorism drills last year." Mercer stared at her. "You're serious?" "Deadly." Sarah checked her weapon. "Richards trained me too well. He forgot I know all his security protocols." She looked at Max, who was already alert, ready, and he underestimated what we'd do to stop him. The setting sun cast long shadows across the warehouse floor as they prepared to infiltrate the heart of the department Sarah once called home. Neither spoke the obvious truth. If they were caught, there would be no badge to surrender, only a cell waiting at best, a bullet at worst. Max nudged Sarah's hand with his nose, their private signal of confidence before dangerous operations. "I know," she told him softly. "No matter what happens, we're in this together." Outside, thunder rolled across the Atlanta skyline, a storm gathering both literal and figurative as night fell on a city unaware of the invisible threat converging upon it. The evidence lab's motion sensors swept harmlessly beneath them as Sarah and Max navigated the narrow ventilation shaft. Years of tactical training in confined spaces was paying off, though Sarah's shoulders screamed in protest. "Almost there," she whispered to Max, who moved ahead with silent efficiency. Through the next grate, she could see the biological containment unit where Petrov's samples would be stored. The lab was deserted, a stroke of luck amid cascading disasters. Sarah carefully removed the grate and lowered Max down first, then followed. The containment unit required her old access code plus biometric scan. If Richards had locked her out of the system entirely, they'd have no chance. She placed her palm on the scanner, holding her breath. Access granted. Collins, Sarah J. K9 Division. Thank God for bureaucratic inefficiency, she muttered, accessing the sample database. What she found confirmed her worst fears. The pathogen was engineered with a delayed activation mechanism. Exposure wouldn't show symptoms for 36 hours, enough time for infected travelers to reach dozens of destinations before the first case appeared. They're creating a pandemic, she realized aloud. Not just an attack, a global outbreak that can't be contained. Sarah downloaded the lab results onto a secure drive when Max suddenly tensed, ears forward. A second later, she heard it too, footsteps approaching. They ducked behind a storage cabinet as the lab door opened. Director Richards entered, followed by a man Sarah instantly recognized, Victor Orloff. The samples are secure? Orloff asked, his accent heavier than Sarah remembered. Everything's proceeding according to schedule, Richards replied. Collins is being hunted as a rogue officer. Her credibility is destroyed. Orloff examined the containment unit. And the deployment teams? In position at all 4 targets. Atlanta's scheduled for tomorrow morning, 7 a.m., maximum commuter density. Sarah's hand instinctively tightened on Max's collar, keeping him still, despite his obvious desire to lunge at the man who had nearly killed him 2 years ago. The payment? Richards asked. Orloff smiled coldly. Once confirmation of release comes through, your new identity and accounts will be activated in Dubai. 50 million, as agreed. Richards nodded. I'll need to check the Atlanta team personally before deployment. The subway station security has been upgraded since our last assessment. Don't fail me, Michael. There are no second chances in this business. After they left, Sarah waited 5 agonizing minutes before moving. We've got less than 8 hours to stop attacks in 4 major cities. She accessed Richard's computer terminal, still logged in. Another critical mistake. His emails revealed the full operational plan, coordinated releases in subway systems across the country, timed for maximum spread. Sarah sent everything to Mercer's secure server, then paused at a personnel file left open on the screen, her own. A red stamp across it read, "Terminate with extreme prejudice." "That's not very subtle," she muttered to Max. A noise in the hallway startled them both. Sarah quickly logged out and headed for the ventilation shaft, but Max refused to move, sniffing intensely at a locked cabinet. "Max, we need to go. Now." The dog remained fixated. Sarah recognized his detection posture. "More samples? Here?" She overrode the cabinet's lock using Richard's credentials. Inside sat a single vial, different from the others, labeled with skull and crosshairs. The attached note chilled her. Canine countermeasure. Aerosol before deployment. It was designed to kill detection dogs before they could alert to the main bioweapon. "They're planning for everything," Sarah whispered, carefully securing the vial in her pack. "Including you." As they prepared to leave, the lab door burst open. 2 armed security officers entered, weapons drawn. "Freeze! Police!" Sarah had seconds to decide. The ventilation shaft was no longer an option. The only other exit was the window, a 3-story drop to the concrete below. Max looked at her, awaiting command. "Trust me," she whispered, grabbing a lab coat and wrapping it around her arm. With one motion, she smashed the window, fired 2 shots at the ceiling lights, and leapt into darkness with Max in her arms. They landed hard on an equipment shed roof, rolling to absorb impact before dropping to ground level. Alarms blared throughout the complex as they sprinted toward the perimeter fence. "Stop or we'll shoot," voices shouted behind them. Sarah kept running, Max perfectly matched to her pace. They'd made their choice. There was no turning back. As they cleared the fence and disappeared into the night, Sarah activated the burner phone. "Mercer, it's me. We've got a bigger problem than we thought. 4 cities, simultaneous attacks. Tomorrow morning." "Jesus, Sarah. This is bigger than we can handle. We need to bring in the feds." "No time for bureaucracy. Richards has contacts everywhere. We need a direct line to someone we can trust." "I might have someone," Mercer said after a pause. "FBI counterterrorism. Agent Dana Morrison. She investigated Richards last year before the case was mysteriously closed." Sarah checked her watch. 11:42 p.m. Less than 8 hours until thousands of people would walk into death traps across the country. "Set it up. We meet in 1 hour." As they moved through shadow-draped streets, Sarah felt the weight of the coming confrontation. Tomorrow, she would face her mentor in a battle where the stakes couldn't be higher. Max pressed close against her leg, a silent promise between partners. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The abandoned Kirkwood Martyr station hadn't seen passengers in years, but tonight it hummed with covert activity. Sarah watched through tactical binoculars as 3 men in maintenance uniforms carried equipment down to the sealed platform. "That's our target," she whispered to Agent Morrison, the FBI counterterrorism specialist who'd been hunting Richards for months. "How sure are you about the timeline?" Morrison asked, checking her weapon. "Richards said 7 a.m., peak commuter rush." Sarah glanced at her watch. 5:13 a.m. "They're setting up the dispersal system now." The night had passed in a blur of desperate planning. Morrison had mobilized a small, trusted team, while Mercer coordinated with contacts in the other target cities. They were operating completely off the books, the only way to ensure Richards couldn't be tipped off. Max suddenly stiffened, head turning toward the station's north entrance. "He's here," Sarah said, recognizing her partner's alert. "Richards is on site." Sure enough, a black SUV pulled up to the emergency access door. Director Richards stepped out, exchanging brief words with a security guard before disappearing inside. Morrison keyed her radio. "All units, primary target confirmed on site. Hold positions until my mark." Sarah checked her tactical vest and gave Max a final inspection. The specialized mask fitted over his muzzle would protect him from airborne agents, but offered limited protection time. "Remember," she told Morrison, "Richards is mine." The agent nodded grimly. "Just make sure you take him alive. We need to know who else is involved." They moved silently through the maintenance tunnel, Morrison's team spreading out to cover all exits. The musty air grew thicker as they descended toward the platform level. At the final security door, Morrison's tech specialist overrode the electronic lock. The door slid open to reveal the cavernous station below. Sarah immediately spotted Richards supervising the installation of dispersal units, disguised as air quality monitors along the platform. Orloff stood nearby, checking a tablet displaying what appeared to be a countdown. "In position," Morrison whispered into her comm. "On my signal. 3, 2... Before she could finish, one of the workers looked up, spotting their position. "Intruders!" Everything exploded into chaos. Morrison's team surged forward as Orloff's men scrambled for weapons. Gunfire erupted, echoing deafeningly off the tiled walls. "Take the east corridor," Sarah shouted to Morrison. "Cut off their escape." With Max at her side, Sarah circled behind a pillar, tracking Richards as he grabbed a metal case and sprinted toward the service tunnels. "Find him!" she commanded Max, who shot forward despite the gunfire, following Richards' scent trail with unerring precision. They pursued him deep into the underground network, emergency lights casting harsh shadows across concrete walls. Max suddenly skidded to a halt at a junction, growling at a maintenance door. Sarah approached cautiously, weapon ready. "Police! It's over, Director!" The door burst open as Richards charged through, swinging the metal case at Sarah's head. She ducked, but he followed with a crushing kick that sent her weapon skittering across the floor. "You always were my best student," Richards said, circling her. "Too good, as it turns out." "Why?" Sarah demanded, blocking another strike. "All those years protecting people, what happened to you?" "Protecting people." Richards laughed bitterly. Do you know what my pension would be after 30 years of service? Nothing. Debt and a ceremony with a cheap watch. They exchanged blows in the narrow corridor. Years of training together, making each anticipate the other's moves. 50 million buys a better retirement plan, he continued. Nothing personal, Sarah. Tell that to the thousands you're planning to kill. Max lunged suddenly, clamping onto Richard's arm. The director howled in pain, slamming the dog against the wall repeatedly until Max's grip loosened. Always hated that mutt, Richard spat, retrieving a small aerosol canister from his pocket. Should have put him down after Orloff's little gift last time. He sprayed the canister directly at Max, who collapsed instantly, body convulsing. No! Sarah screamed, rushing to her partner. Richards used the distraction to escape deeper into the tunnel system, the case containing the bioweapon still in his possession. Sarah knelt beside Max, heart hammering, as the dog's breathing grew labored. His protective mask had been damaged in the fight. "Stay with me, buddy," she pleaded, administering the emergency counteragent she'd taken from the lab. "Not again. Please." For an agonizing moment, Max lay still. Then his eyes fluttered open, struggling to focus. Sarah faced an impossible choice: pursue Richards and the bioweapon or stay with her injured partner. Max struggled to his feet, swaying but determined, and nudged her hand toward the tunnel where Richards had fled. "You sure?" she whispered. Max's response was to move forward, leading the way despite his weakened state. Together, they followed the tunnel as it sloped upward, emerging onto the main platform where FBI agents were securing Orloff and his team. The dispersal units had been disabled, but Richards and the main bioweapon were still unaccounted for. A commotion from the public entrance drew their attention. Through the gate, Sarah could see commuters beginning to arrive for the morning rush. "He's going to release it manually," she realized with horror. Right into the crowd. As if confirming her fears, an announcement echoed through the station. "MARTA service resuming on all lines. Please stand clear of the platform edge." The first train rumbled in the distance, approaching the station where Richards waited, invisible among hundreds of innocent people, holding enough death in his hands to devastate a city. Sarah looked at Max, still struggling, but refusing to quit. "One more time, partner. Let's finish this." They raced toward the public concourse, knowing the next few minutes would determine whether Atlanta woke to a normal day or the beginning of a nightmare. The 5 Points MARTA station heaved with morning commuters, oblivious to the danger moving among them. Sarah pushed through the crowd, Max weaving ahead despite his weakened state, tracking Richard's scent. "Platform 3, Sarah called to Morrison through her comm. "He's headed for the northbound train." "Copy that. All units converge on Platform 3. Evacuation is not an option. Too many civilians. We take him quietly or not at all." The station's public address system announced, "Northbound train arriving in 2 minutes." Sarah spotted Richards on the opposite side of the platform, the metal case clutched against his side. He'd changed into civilian clothes, but couldn't hide from Max's detection abilities. "I need a distraction," Sarah told Morrison, "something to thin the crowd." "No, working on it," the agent replied. Seconds later, the sprinkler system activated across half the station. As commuters scattered from the unexpected shower, Sarah circled around, closing the distance to Richards. Max suddenly froze, hackles raised. Following his gaze, Sarah spotted Orloff, who should have been in custody, approaching Richards from the opposite direction. "Morrison, Orloff is loose. Repeat, Orloff is on the platform." "Impossible," came the response. "We have him secure." The comm went dead. Sarah realized with sickening clarity they had the wrong man. A decoy. Richards spotted Orloff approaching and nodded in recognition. The exchange was about to happen, the bioweapon for the payment and escape route. The train rumbled into the station, doors sliding open as passengers began to board and exit. Sarah had seconds to act. "Max, take Orloff. Now!" The Belgian Malinois surged forward with unexpected strength, launching himself directly at Orloff. The attack caught the arms dealer completely by surprise, sending him crashing into a bench. Sarah simultaneously tackled Richards, driving him to the ground mere feet from the platform edge. The metal case skidded across the concrete, stopping precariously close to the track. "It's over, Michael," she grunted, struggling to subdue her former mentor. "You have no idea what you're interfering with," Richards hissed, landing a savage blow to her ribs. "This is bigger than country, bigger than loyalty. Save it for your trial." Sarah struck back, but Richards was stronger, managing to throw her off. He lunged for the case just as Max, having temporarily incapacitated Orloff, intercepted him with a ferocious growl. Richards froze, face to face with the dog he'd tried to kill twice. "Call him off, Sarah. You know what's in this case. One wrong move and it breaks open right here." "Max," Sarah said calmly, "hold." The dog maintained position, teeth bared inches from Richards' throat. "Smart move," Richards said, slowly reaching for the case. "Wasn't talking to you." Sarah nodded to Max, who instantly clamped onto Richards' wrist, dragging him away from the bioweapon. Morrison's team converged from all directions, securing the case and subduing Orloff, who had regained consciousness and attempted to flee. As agents took control of the scene, Sarah knelt beside Max, who finally allowed himself to show exhaustion, collapsing into her arms. "Get a vet here now," she shouted, cradling her partner. "Officer down." 3 weeks later, Sarah stood in dress uniform before the Atlanta Police Department headquarters, cameras flashing as the commissioner pinned the Medal of Valor to her collar. Beside her, Max sat at perfect attention, his own commendation gleaming on his tactical vest. Officer Collins and K-9 Officer Max demonstrated exceptional bravery, the commissioner announced to the assembled crowd and press. Their actions prevented a catastrophic attack and led to the dismantling of an international bioterrorism network. The investigation had revealed the full scope of the conspiracy. 4 simultaneous attacks meant to cripple American infrastructure and trigger a global pandemic. Richards had been compromised through gambling debts 2 years earlier, gradually turned into a full asset by Korovian intelligence services. Ambassador Petrov had been stripped of diplomatic immunity and now faced trial alongside Richards, Orloff, and 12 other conspirators across 4 countries. After the ceremony, Agent Morrison approached Sarah in the reception hall. "The FBI could use someone with your skills," she said. "The counterterrorism unit is expanding its K-9 division." Sarah watched Max circulating through the crowd, accepting ear scratches and treats with dignified patience. The veterinarians had been amazed by his recovery, a testament to his extraordinary will. "Thanks for the offer," Sarah replied, "but we're happy where we are." Later that afternoon, Sarah drove to Hartsfield-Jackson International, Max riding shotgun with his head out the window. TSA Supervisor Dalton met them at the security checkpoint. "The Collins-Max protocol goes into effect next week," he told her, referring to the new security procedures named in their honor. "No more diplomatic immunity for suspicious packages." Sarah nodded, watching travelers stream through the terminal, ordinary people going about their lives, unaware how close they'd come to disaster. "Ready to get back to work, partner?" she asked Max, who responded with an enthusiastic bark. As they took their position at the security checkpoint, a passing traveler recognized them from the news. "Aren't you the ones who stopped that attack?" the woman asked. "You're heroes," Sarah smiled. "We're just doing our job, ma'am." She glanced down at Max, alert and ready beside her. "Right, partner." Max's answering look said everything. Whatever came next, they would face it together. A diplomatic delegation approached the checkpoint, ambassadors and attachés with their official pouches and credentials. Max watched them with professional interest, as Sarah prepared for another day of protecting the city they called home. Some partnership went beyond words, beyond duty, beyond explanation. In a world of shifting loyalties and hidden dangers, Sarah had found one constant, the unbreakable bond with the partner who had never let her down. And that, she knew, was worth fighting for.